The morning sun rose over Seoul like any other day in 2157. Dr. Hyan Woo Kim walked through the glass corridors of the Atmospheric Research Center, his coffee still warm in his hands. Outside the windows, the city sparkled with clean energy towers and floating transport pods. The air was so pure that children could play in the streets without masks, something their great-grandparents could never have imagined. Earth had changed so much in the past century. 12 billion people now lived in harmony with nature. The oceans were blue again. The forests had returned. Humanity had friends among the stars. Hyanwoo smiled as he thought about his daughter, Nairi. She was only 8 years old, but she already wanted to be a scientist like her father. Every morning she would ask him about the weather machines and the air cleaners that kept their world safe. "Daddy, why do we need to watch the air?" she had asked him yesterday. "Because clean air means healthy people," he had told her. And healthy people can build beautiful things. Now, as Hyan Woo sat at his desk, he stared at the numbers on his screen. Something was wrong. The air quality readings from 3 different districts showed unusual patterns. Tiny particles that should not exist were floating in the atmosphere. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the Vorthok ships hung in space like crystal daggers. Commander Thexmar stood in the bridge of the flagship, watching the blue planet below. His body was made of living crystal, transparent and sharp. Light moved through him like water through glass. "The mining operation on the moon is proceeding well," reported his aide. "The humans believe we are extracting minerals for trade." Mars' crystal form vibrated with what humans might call laughter. "Foolish creatures. They think we want their rocks. What we want is their world." The Vorthok had been watching Earth for 50 years. They had seen how humans lived, how they breathed, how they built their cities. Earth would make a perfect colony world for the Vorthok Empire. There was just one problem. Humans. Began Phase 2. Thexmar ordered. "Release the nanobots into their atmosphere. Let them think it is just space dust." On the moon, Engineer Daeho Park worked in the mining facility. He was a good man who believed in peace between species. The Vorthok had hired him to help with their equipment, and he was proud to be part of Earth's first alien mining partnership. But something felt wrong. The machines the Vorthok used did not look like mining equipment. They looked like atmosphere processors, the kind used to change the air on dead planets. Daeho waited until the Vorthok workers left for their rest period. Then he went to examine the machines more closely. What he found made his blood run cold. The machines were not mining anything. They were creating billions of tiny robots, smaller than dust particles. These nanobots were being shot into Earth's atmosphere through invisible beams, and according to the machine's display, they were designed to change the chemical makeup of Earth's air. "They are poisoning our world," Daeho whispered to himself. He quickly began recording everything on his personal device. The plans, the machine, settings, the target zones on Earth. He had to warn everyone before it was too late. Back on Earth, Dr. Hyanwoo was getting worried. Strange particles in the air were increasing every hour. He called his team together for an emergency meeting. "I need everyone to run full spectrum analysis on these samples," he told his assistants. "Something is contaminating our atmosphere, and I want to know what it is." Dr. So-Young Lee, who worked in the biochemistry lab, raised her hand. "Sir, I ran some tests on the particles. They are not natural. They look like they were made by machines. Made by machines." Hyanwoo felt his heart skip. "Are you sure?" "Sir. And they seem to be designed to change oxygen molecules into something else, something that might be harmful to human lungs." The scientists worked to understand the threat. The nanobots continued their silent work. They spread through the atmosphere like an invisible plague, carried by wind and weather patterns. Each tiny robot was programmed to change the air that humans needed to breathe. The first victims were the children. In a school in Busan, little Minho started coughing during math class. His teacher thought he had a cold, but by lunchtime, half the class was having trouble breathing. By evening, the hospitals were full of children with strange lung problems. The same thing happened in Tokyo, in New York, in London. Children everywhere began to get sick. Their lungs could not process the changed air properly. Dr. Hyen Woo received the first reports at midnight. His hands shook as he read the medical data. The children were not sick with any known disease. Their lungs were simply shutting down, as if the air itself had become poison. His phone rang. It was his wife. Hyen Woo, you need to come home. Is in the hospital. She cannot breathe properly. The world seemed to stop. Hyen Woo ran through the empty streets to the hospital. When he arrived, he found his beautiful daughter connected to breathing machines. Her face was pale, and her eyes were closed. The doctors say her lungs are failing, his wife cried. They do not know why, but Hyen Woo knew. The particles in the air were killing his daughter. They were killing all the children. On the moon, Daeho finished copying the Vorthok plans. He had discovered the terrible truth. The nanobots would continue to change Earth's atmosphere until it became perfect for the Vorthok, but deadly for humans. The process would take only 3 months to complete. He had to warn Earth immediately. But as he tried to send his message, Vorthok guards burst into the room. Human spy, one of them hissed, "You have seen too much." Daeho fought bravely, but the Vorthok were strong. With his last breath, he managed to hit the send button on his communication device. The message reached Earth just as the first 1,000 children died. Within hours, the truth spread across the planet. Had betrayed humanity's trust. They had come not as friends, but as invaders, and they were killing Earth's children with every breath. Commander Thexmar watched the chaos from his ship. Human news broadcasts showed angry crowds and emergency meetings. But it was too late. The nanobots were already in the atmosphere, and they could not be stopped. "Contact the human governments," he ordered. "Tell them we offer them a choice. They can evacuate Earth peacefully, or they can stay and die. Either way, this world will belong to the Vorthok Empire." Dr. Hyen Woo held his daughter's hand as she took her last breath. Around the world, millions of families were experiencing the same heartbreak. The air that had once given life was now bringing death. But in Neri's hospital room, tears fell from her father's eyes. Something else was being born. In the hearts of humanity, a fire was beginning to burn. It was not the fire of hatred, but the fire of determination. The Vorthok had made a terrible mistake. They had threatened humanity's children, and humanity would never forgive them for that. 3 weeks after the first children died, the world had changed forever. Cities that once bustled with life now stood like empty shells. The lucky survivors lived in underground bunkers or sealed buildings with air filtration systems. The unlucky ones had already joined the growing graveyards. Dr. Hyen Woo Kim stood in the underground laboratory beneath what used to be Seoul. The facility had been built decades ago as a backup research center, but now it was home to 200 scientists and their families. The air inside was clean, but everyone knew their supplies would not last forever. "The nanobots are spreading faster than we calculated," reported Dr. So-Young Lee. She had been working without sleep for days, studying the alien machines that were slowly killing their world. "At this rate, the entire atmosphere will be toxic to humans within 2 months." Hyen Woo nodded grimly. After his daughter's death, he had thrown himself into the work. Understanding the enemy was the first step toward fighting back. What about the Vorthok? How did these nanobots affect them? "That is the interesting part," So-Young said, pulling up data on her screen. "The nanobots are changing our oxygen into something the Vorthok can breathe. Their biology is completely different from ours. They are silicon-based life forms, not carbon-based, like us. In another part of the underground facility, Captain Jinho Choi was training a small group of volunteers. Before the crisis, he had been a military officer responsible for Earth's defense. Now, he was preparing for a war unlike any humanity had ever fought. Think they have already won, he told his team. They sit in their ships above us, waiting for us to die. But they made one mistake. They gave us time to study them. One of the volunteers, a young woman named Su Jian-han, raised her hand. Sir, what have we learned about their weaknesses? Jinho smiled for the first time in weeks. Plenty. Wow. They were busy poisoning our air. We were busy learning how to kill them. He activated a holographic display showing the crystal structure of Vorthok biology. Their bodies are made of living silicon, very strong, very durable. But silicon has a weakness. Certain organic compounds can break down their molecular structure. Like what? Asked another volunteer. That is where our scientists come in, Jinho replied. They are working on something special. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic section of the bunker, Ming Ji-yoon was doing something that many thought was impossible. She was trying to find allies among the stars. Before the invasion, she had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. Now, she was humanity's last hope for outside help. It's Ambassador Catherine. She spoke into the secure communication device. Please, you must listen to me. The Vorthok are not just threatening Earth. They are threatening every peaceful species in the galaxy. The alien on the screen looked like a tall, thin creature with blue skin and large eyes. The Altarians had been trading partners with Earth for 20 years. We have heard of your troubles, Ambassador Yoon, but what can we do? The Vorthok Empire is very powerful. Help us find others who have suffered under their rule, Minji pleaded. You know they have done this before. 17 worlds have fallen to their so-called terraforming projects. But what if we could stop them here? The Altarian was quiet for a long moment. There are others who have lost their homes to the Vorthok, the Nexari refugees, the survivors of the Kelthon colonies. But they are scattered and weak. Weak alone, Minji said, but maybe strong together. Back in the laboratory, Dr. So-Young Lee was making a breakthrough. She had been studying samples of Vorthok technology that Daeho had managed to send before his death. Hidden in the data was information about Vorthok biology that even they might not know. Hyen-woo, come look at this, she called excitedly. I found something important. Hyen-woo hurried over to her workstation. On the screen was a complex molecular diagram. What am I looking at? This is the Vorthok cellular structure, So-Young explained. See how their silicon chains are held together. They use a very specific type of bonding that makes them strong, but also creates a vulnerability. What kind of vulnerability? If we could introduce certain organic compounds into their system, their cells would begin to break down. Not just break down, but actually ignite. Chemical reaction would cause their bodies to burn from the inside. Hyen-woo stared at the screen. The implications were staggering. You are talking about a weapon that could kill every Vorthok on Earth and beyond, So-Young said quietly. If we could get it into their atmospheric systems, it would spread to their ships, their colonies, maybe even their home world. That would be genocide, Hyen-woo whispered. Yes, So-Young replied. Just like what they are doing to us. The moral weight of their discovery hung in the air. In another part of the bunker, this same debate was happening among the survivors. Kamen, who had been a philosophy professor, was leading a group that opposed the weapon. If we do this, we become no better than them, he argued. We will be mass murderers. And if we do not do this, we will be extinct, countered Captain Jinho. I have seen the children's bodies. I have watched families torn apart. The Vorthok chose this path when they decided to poison our world. But genocide, Jinho, the complete destruction of an entire species. How can we live with ourselves? How can we live with ourselves if we let humanity die when we have the power to save it? The debate continued for hours, but outside their bunker, the dying continued. Every day, more survivors succumbed to the poisoned air. Every day, the Vorthok grew stronger. Dr. Hyenwu found himself thinking about his daughter, Nari. She would never grow up, never become a scientist, never have children of her own, because the Vorthok had decided that human life was worthless. That night, he made his decision. He found Dr. Saw Young in her laboratory, still working on the weapon. "Can you really make it work?" he asked. "Give me 2 weeks," she said. "Okay, I can create a compound that will turn their own biology against them. But Hyenwu, once we use this, there is no going back. The Vorthok will not survive it." "Good," he said, surprising himself with a coldness in his voice. "They showed our children no mercy. We will show them none." Above ground, Commander Dexmar watched the latest reports from Earth. The human population was dropping rapidly. Soon, the planet would be ready for Vorthok colonization. He had already selected the sites for their first cities. "Commander," his aide reported, "our sensors detect some underground activity. We investigate." Dexmar's crystal form shimmered with amusement. "Let them hide in their holes. In a few more weeks, even their bunkers will not save them. Earth will be ours, and humanity will be just another extinct species." But in the depths of the Earth, humanity was preparing something that would shock the galaxy. They were not just planning to survive, okay? They were planning to make the Vorthok pay for every human life they had taken. The storm was gathering, okay? And soon it would be time for the fire to begin. 2 weeks had passed since the survivors made their terrible decision. In the deepest level of the underground facility, Dr. Saw Young Lee worked in a laboratory that had become both humanity's greatest hope and its darkest secret. The compound she had created looked harmless enough. It was a clear liquid that smelled like nothing at all. But this innocent-looking substance held the power to destroy an entire species. She had named it Prometheus Fire after the ancient myth of the god who stole fire from the heavens. "The compound is ready," she announced to the assembled leaders. "1 drop of this in a Vorthok atmospheric system will spread throughout their entire network within hours. It will cause their silicon-based cells to ignite from within." Dr. Hyenwu studied the sample container. Such a small thing to carry such devastating power. "How does it work exactly?" "The compound mimics a harmless organic molecule that the Vorthok systems will not filter out," Saw Young explained. "Once it enters their bodies, it reacts with their silicon chains and causes a chemical fire. They will literally burn alive from the inside." Captain Jinho nodded grimly. "And it spreads through their air recycling systems. Yes, 1 facility infected will contaminate their ships, their colonies, everything connected to their atmospheric network. The compound can survive in space and will remain active for months." The room fell silent as everyone understood the implications. This was not just a weapon against the Vorthok on Earth. This was a weapon that could destroy their entire civilization. Meanwhile, Ming Ju-Yoon had been successful in her diplomatic efforts. Through secret channels, she had contacted 3 alien species who had suffered under Vorthok rule. They were willing to help, but for different reasons. "The Altarians will provide us with cloaking technology," she reported. "Their ships can hide our people from Vorthok sensors. The Nexari have offered their expertise in atmospheric manipulation. And the Keltons have given us detailed information about Vorthok weaknesses." "What do they want in return?" asked Captain Jinho. Just as Mingi replied, "The Vorthok destroyed the Kelton homeworld 5 years ago. The Nexari lost 3 colonies to Vorthok terraforming. The Altarians have been living in fear of invasion. They all want to see the Vorthok Empire fall." While the resistance prepared their weapon, pilot Sujin Han was leading a dangerous mission. She and her team had been sneaking into abandoned cities, locating Vorthok atmospheric processors. Key. These machines were the key to their plan. Key. We have identified 47 processing stations across the planet, she reported. Each one is connected to the others through underground conduits. If we can introduce the compound into just one station, it will spread to all of them. What about the Vorthok ships in orbit? Asked Dr. Hyanwu. The ships dock with the surface stations to refuel their atmospheric systems, Sujin explained. Once the compound is in the network, it will spread to every Vorthok vessel. But as the plan took shape, the moral debate continued. Professor Tamino had not given up his fight against what he saw as humanity's descent into evil. We are about to commit the greatest crime in galactic history, he told anyone who would listen. We are planning to exterminate an entire species. How are we different from them? We are different because we did not start this war, Dr. Hyanwu replied. We tried to live in peace. We welcomed them to our world. We repaid our kindness with genocide. But genocide, in return for genocide, does not make us righteous, Taman insisted. It makes us murderers. Then I will be a murderer, Hyanwu said coldly. If that is what it takes to save humanity, I will carry that burden. The argument was interrupted by an urgent alarm. The Vorthok were making their final move. Commander Dexmar had grown tired of waiting. From his flagship, he sent a message to the human survivors. Your time is over. We know you are hiding underground. You have 24 hours to surrender, or we will begin bombing your cities to force you out. They are trying to speed up the process, Captain Jinho realized. They want to finish the terraforming quickly. Then we move tonight, Dr. Hyanwu decided. We cannot wait any longer. As the sun set over the dying earth, the human resistance prepared for their desperate gambit. Sujin Han and her team loaded the Prometheus fire into portable containers. Using Altarian cloaking devices, they would infiltrate the atmospheric processing stations. Remember, Captain Jinho told the strike teams, you only need to reach one station. The compound will do the rest. But once you release it, there is no way to stop what happens next. Dr. So Young Lee made one final check of her creation. The compound was stable, and the delivery system was ready. But as she looked at the weapon she had created, she felt a chill in her heart. Hyanwu, she said quietly, are we doing the right thing? I do not know, he admitted. But I know what happens if we do nothing. Humanity dies. Every child who might have been born dies. Every dream we might have achieved dies. And if we do this, then we live. But we live with the knowledge of what we have done. As the strike teams prepared to leave, Dr. Hyanwu found himself alone with his thoughts. He walked to the memorial wall, where pictures of the dead were displayed. Kana's smiling face looked back at him. I am sorry, my daughter, he whispered. I am sorry for what we have to do, but I cannot let your death be meaningless. Above ground, the Vorthok ships continued their slow patrol of the dying planet. Commander Dexmar was already planning the construction of the first Vorthok city. He would build it where Sol once stood, as a monument to Vorthok's superiority. Sir, his aide reported. We are detecting some unusual readings from the atmospheric processors. It's very faint, but consistent across multiple stations. Probably just system fluctuations, Dexmar dismissed. The machines have been working hard to transform this world. Minor glitches are to be expected, but the readings were not glitches. They were the first signs of humanity's terrible revenge at exactly midnight. Sujin Han's team reached the primary processing station in what used to be Tokyo. The facility was massive, with pipes and conduits stretching deep underground. Vorthok guards patrolled the perimeter, but the Altarian cloaking technology made the humans invisible. Target acquired, Sujin whispered into her communication device. Beginning insertion of the compound. She approached the main atmospheric intake and carefully poured the Prometheus fire into the system. The clear liquid disappeared into the machinery without a trace. Compound deployed, she reported. Extraction in progress. Within minutes, the liquid began to spread through the network of pipes and conduits. It moved silently through the system, carried by the very air the Vorthok had poisoned. Soon, it would reach every processing station on Earth, and then it would reach the ships. The fire was about to begin. The first Vorthok to die was a maintenance worker in the Tokyo processing station. His name was Velthin, and he had been checking the atmospheric filters when the Prometheus fire reached him. At first, he felt nothing. The compound was designed to be undetectable until it was too late. Then the burning started, deep inside his crystalline body. The silicon chains that held his cells together began to break apart. But instead of simply dissolving, they ignited. A fire started in his core and spread outward through his entire being. Velthin screamed as his own body became a torch, burning from the inside out. Within the processing station, alarms began to sound. Other Vorthok workers rushed to help their colleague, but when they touched him, the fire spread to them too. The compound had made Velthin's body into a living weapon. Emergency at Station 7. The automated systems reported across the Vorthok network. Unknown contamination detected. Workers are combusting. Commander Dexmar received the alert on his flagship. At first, he thought it was some kind of equipment malfunction. Send a medical team to investigate, he ordered. But before the medical team could arrive, the fire had spread throughout the entire Tokyo station. Every Vorthok inside was burning alive, their crystal bodies glowing like torches in the darkness. The sight was both beautiful and terrible in the underground bunker. Dr. Hyan-Woo and his team watched the readings from their hidden sensors. The compound was working exactly as Dr. So-young had predicted. The fire is spreading through their atmospheric network, she reported. Every station on Earth should be affected within the next 2 hours. What about their ships? Asked Captain Jin-Ho. The compound will reach them when they cycle their air with the surface stations. It should happen automatically. Above the Earth, the Vorthok fleet continued its patrol, unaware that death was rising toward them through their own life support systems. The first ship to be affected was a supply vessel that had just finished refueling its atmospheric systems. From the surface, Captain Morthex was reviewing supply reports when his crew began to scream. He rushed to the bridge to find his navigator burning alive, crystal flames dancing across his body. Before Morthex could react, the fire jumped to him. The burning was unlike anything in Vorthok experience. Their silicon-based biology had always made them nearly indestructible. But now their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. The very structure that made them strong was feeding the fire that consumed them. All ships, this is an emergency, Morthex managed to transmit before the flames reached his communication organs. Do not cycle atmospheric systems. Repeat, do not cycle atmospheric systems. But it was too late. The warning came just as most of the fleet was performing routine air exchanges with the surface. Ship after ship began to report the same horrifying phenomenon. Their crews were burning alive. Commander Dexmar watched in horror as his mighty fleet became a collection of burning funeral pyres. How is this possible? He demanded. What weapon could do this to us? His science officer, one of the few who had not yet been exposed to the compound, worked frantically at his station. Sir, I am detecting an unknown organic compound in our atmospheric systems. It appears to be causing a chemical reaction with our cellular structure. Can it be stopped? I do not know, sir. The compound is unlike anything in our databases. It seems to be designed specifically to target our biology. As Dexmar spoke, he felt a strange warmth in his chest. The compound had finally reached him through the ship's air system. He looked down and saw a small flame flickering inside his crystal body. The humans, he whispered as the fire began to spread. The humans did this to us. But even as Dexmar burned, He had one last weapon to use. The Warthog Empire had a final protocol for extreme situations. If they could not have a world, they would make sure no one else could either. Activate the stellar detonator, he ordered his science officer. If we die, Earth dies with us. The stellar detonator was a terrible weapon that could cause a star to collapse and explode. If activated, it would destroy Earth's sun and everything in the solar system. Captain Jinho detected the energy buildup just in time. "They are trying to destroy our sun," he shouted. "We have to stop them." "How?" asked Dr. Hyan-Woo. "Their ship is too well defended." "Not from the outside," Jinho replied. "But the compound has weakened them. I can get aboard their flagship. I might be able to stop the detonator." It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But without someone to stop the stellar detonator, humanity's victory would become everyone's death. "I will go with you," volunteered Sujin Han. "And me," said Dongwoo Park, one of the younger engineers. Soon, a team of 12 volunteers had assembled. They would use an Altarian stealth ship to reach the Vorthok flagship. Most of them would probably die, but if even one person could reach the detonator, Earth might be saved. As the strike team prepared to leave, the compound continued its deadly work across the galaxy. The Prometheus fire had a terrible property that Dr. Soyoung had not mentioned. It could survive in the vacuum of space and remain active for months. Vorthok ships that fled Earth carried the compound with them to their colonies. Supply ships spread it to distant outposts. Trade vessels brought it to the Vorthok homeworld itself. What had started as a weapon to save Earth was becoming the extinction of an entire species on the Vorthok homeworld. Billions of crystal beings began to burn. Their great cities became funeral pyres. Their advanced civilization crumbled as the fire spread through every atmospheric system, every building, every ship. The Vorthok Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was ending, not in conquest, but in flames. But aboard the flagship above Earth, the stellar detonator continued its countdown. Commander Dexmar was dead, but the automated systems continued their work. In 30 minutes, Earth's sun would begin to collapse. Captain Jinho and his team reached the flagship just as the fire was consuming the last of its crew. The crystal corridors were filled with ash and the lingering glow of burned Vorthok. The ship was a tomb, but its weapons were still active. "The detonator is on the bridge," Jinho told his team. "We have 20 minutes to shut it down." They fought their way through the dying ship, past burning Vorthok and collapsing systems. One by one, Jinho's team fell to automated defenses or structural failures. Soon, only he and Sujin remained. There, Sujin pointed to a massive crystal device in the center of the bridge. "That must be the detonator." The device was heavily shielded and protected by multiple security systems. But the fire had damaged some of the controls. Jinho began working frantically to disable the weapon. 10 minutes remaining, the ship's computer announced in the Vorthok language. "I cannot shut it down," Jinho realized. But I might be able to overload it. The explosion will destroy this ship and probably kill us, but it will save Earth." Sujin nodded. "Do it." As Jinho worked to overload the stellar detonator, he thought about his life, about Earth, about the children who might now have a future. The fire that was consuming the Vorthok had given humanity a second chance. 5 minutes remaining. "Got it," Jinho shouted as he triggered the overload. "Everyone, hold on." The stellar detonator exploded in a burst of energy that lit up the space around Earth. The Vorthok flagship was completely destroyed. Taking the threat to Earth's sun with it, Captain Jinho and Sujin died as heroes, saving not just their world, but their entire solar system in the underground bunker. Dr. Hyan-Woo watched the explosion through their sensors. The immediate threat was over, but as reports came in from across the galaxy, he realized what they had truly done. The Vorthok empire was extinct. Every last one of them had burned in the fire that humanity had created. They had won, but at what cost? 6 months had passed since the last Vorthok died. Earth's sky was clear again, but it was a different kind of clear than before. Dr. So-Yun Lee worked day and night with teams from 3 different alien species to clean the atmosphere. The nanobots were gone, destroyed along with their creators. But the damage they had caused would take years to fully repair. Dr. Hyen Woo Kim stood on the surface for the first time since the crisis began. The air was breathable now, though people still wore masks as a precaution. Around him, the ruins of Seoul stretched toward the horizon. Empty buildings stood like tombstones, marking where 8 billion people once lived. Tikti, atmospheric restoration is going well, Dr. So-Yun reported as she joined him. The Altarian biofilters are working faster than we hoped. The Nexari atmospheric engineers say we should have fully clean air within 2 years, and the population. 4 billion survivors worldwide, she said quietly. Most are still living underground, afraid to come to the surface. Can you blame them? Hyen-Woo shook his head. The numbers were devastating. Half of humanity was gone, including almost all of the children. The Vorthok had succeeded in destroying an entire generation before humanity struck back. Any word from the Galactic Council? He asked. So-Yun's expression darkened. They want to put us on trial for genocide. Ambassador Minji is fighting it, but many species are calling for sanctions against Earth. The political situation was complicated. Some alien species viewed humanity as heroes who had ended the Vorthok threat that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Others saw humans as dangerous extremists who had committed the worst crime in galactic history. The Kelthans are supporting us, So-Yun continued. They say we did what they could never do. We stopped the Vorthok from destroying any more worlds. But the Centaurians and the Veltiri are demanding justice for what they call our war crimes. War crimes, Hyen-Woo repeated bitterly. They were not here when the children were dying. They did not watch their own daughters suffocate in hospital beds. Deep in the underground facility, Professor Tamino was working on a different kind of project. He'd spent the last 6 months documenting everything that had happened. Every decision, every moral choice, every moment of the crisis. He called it the Archive of Choices. Future generations must understand what we did and why. We did it, he explained to his assistant. He must see both our triumph and our shame. The archive contained everything. Cues of the dying children, records of the debates about creating the weapon, footage of the Vorthok burning alive, testimonies from survivors. It was humanity's confession to the galaxy and to history. Professor, his assistant asked, do you think we were right to do what we did? Tammin was quiet for a long moment. I think we were human, he finally said. When faced with extinction, we chose survival. Whether that makes us right or wrong, I cannot say, but it makes us alive. On the surface, Captain Sujin Han's sister, Eugene Han, was leading the reconstruction efforts. She had been off-world during the crisis, serving on a deep space mission. When she returned, she found her home destroyed and her sister dead as a hero. We are building monuments to the dead, she told the survivors who gathered for the weekly briefings. But we are also building homes for the living. We will not just survive, we'll grow strong again. The reconstruction was slow but steady. Humans were working alongside alien volunteers to rebuild their cities. Tarians provided advanced construction technology. The Nexori helped to design new atmospheric systems. Even some species that condemned humanity's actions still sent aid for humanitarian reasons. But the psychological scars were deep. Many survivors suffered from what doctors called atmospheric terror syndrome. They were afraid to breathe without checking air quality first. Children born after the crisis were taught to recognize the signs of atmospheric contamination before they learned to read. Dr. Hyanwu had become something of a leader among the survivors, so he never wanted to roll. People looked to him for guidance because he had been there from the beginning. He had lost everything and still found the strength to save humanity. What kind of people are we now? A young survivor asked him during one of his visits to the new Busan settlement. We are the people who survived, he answered. We are the people who fought back when the universe tried to erase us. We are the people who chose to live. But we are also killers, the young man pressed. We destroyed an entire species. Yes, Hyanwu admitted. We are that too. We will carry that burden forever. But we will carry it as living beings, not as extinct ones. The memorial to the dead had become one of the most visited places on Earth. It was built where Naris Hospital had stood. A simple stone wall listed the names of every human who died during the atmospheric poisoning. But controversially, it also listed the names of every known Vorthok who died in the fire. Why include their names? Many people asked, because forgetting them would make us monsters. Hyanwu had replied, we killed them to save ourselves, but we will not pretend they never existed. The memorial bore a simple inscription. Here lies the price of hatred. May no species ever pay it again. Years passed. The atmosphere healed. New children were born. Cities rose from the ruins. But humanity was forever changed by what they had done and what had been done to them. In the halls of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Min Ji-yoon stood before representatives of 100 worlds. The debate about humanity's fate had raged for 3 years. Some wanted Earth quarantined. Others wanted humans tried for war crimes. A few wanted humanity welcomed as a species that had freed the galaxy from the Vorthok threat. We did what we had to do, Min-ji said in her final speech. We faced extinction and chose to fight back. We do not ask for forgiveness. We do not ask for understanding. We ask only for the right to exist and to ensure that no other species ever faces the choice we faced. The vote was close, but humanity was allowed to remain in the galactic community. However, they were placed under observation. Their weapons technology was monitored. Their expansion into space was limited. They fear us now, Dr. Soyoung observed. Replied Dr. Hyanwu. Fear will keep them from making the same mistake the Vorthok made across the galaxy. The phrase breathing fire had entered common language. It meant catastrophic retaliation. It meant that some lines should never be crossed. It meant that even the most peaceful species could become dangerous when pushed to extinction. The Vorthok homeworld had become a memorial of its own. The eternal flames that still burned there could be seen from space. Other species would point to it and tell their children about the price of genocide. Dr. Hyanwu often visited Nari's grave in the rebuilt cemetery. He was old now, his hair white and his hands shaking. But he still came every week to tell his daughter about the world she would never see. We won, little one. He would say, humanity survived. Children are playing in the streets again. The air is clean. But we paid a terrible price for victory. I hope someday you can forgive us for what we became. On his final visit, weak with age and ready to join his daughter, he left a new message on her gravestone. We were not heroes. We were not villains. We were simply human. And sometimes that is enough. The story of Earth became a legend told across the galaxy. A warning and a promise. A reminder that in the vast darkness of space, even the smallest species could burn bright enough to light up the universe. And in the quiet moments between stars, when alien children asked their parents about the price of cruelty, the answer always came back the same. Ask the Vorthok. Oh wait, you cannot. Earth's children made sure of that.